The chances are that if you're watching this video, either you've been asked to take part in a clinical trial or other research study, and you're already considering doing so. We hope then that this video will help you and your family make the decision to go ahead and get actively involved. Let's begin by defining what a clinical trial actually is. A clinical trial is a research study that involves patients or healthy volunteers to help determine whether a new medicine, medical device or other treatment works and is safe. Each clinical trial is designed to answer questions and tries to find better ways to screen, diagnose, prevent or treat a disease or condition. Research studies vary greatly in size and scope, ranging from simply filling in a questionnaire to a medical intervention study. Clinical trials also cover a broad range of medical conditions. For example, trials are often used to develop new medicines or vaccines. They can be used to look at new surgical procedures, or they can be used to test new treatment for allergies. Essentially, every medical or surgical treatment, as well as any new therapy for mental health, needs to be researched and tested before it can be given approval for general use. And whilst not everyone actually participates in research studies, every man, woman and child in the UK is a direct beneficiary.
And the first step in joining the clinical trial was, can I help people? Can I help people who perhaps are worse than me?
You're always thinking in your mind, well, just maybe it will help me. But in my instant, in my situation, there was no option. It was either just go away and wait to die or try. And I tried.
I sort of thought it would just help other people, because then if I was doing something like a research thing, it could help other people with their medications.
Patients are aware that often they may not benefit themselves from what comes out of a clinical trial, but they're very, very keen that we learn the best treatment so that others can benefit in the future.
Clinical trials form an important part of what our NHS does, and the NHS is committed to improving the healthcare of patients and the public through research.
The Department of Health is committed to increasing research in the NHS for many reasons. We want the evidence to deliver the best health and healthcare to patients and the public. We also know that patients enjoy being in studies in general, that they want that access to the latest treatments. But importantly, we have evidence that if patients are looked after in services that are active in research, they have better health outcomes in general than patients who are looked after in other services where they don't do research. So there's a kind of spreading good effect, and we want all of those quality gains for the NHS.
Committed to help the NHS achieve these aims is the National Institute for Health Research, or NIHR.
The NIHR Clinical Research Network is a major part of the Department of Health's NIHR initiative, and our specific responsibility is to provide the staff and the services required in NHS organisations across England to support clinical research of high quality that the Department of Health wants to see conducted. Patients who enter clinical trials are fundamentally important to clinical research. Without patients who volunteer to participate in clinical trials or who give consent to the use of their clinical data or clinical samples for research, there would be no clinical research.
Clinical trials are not always right for everyone, nor is every patient able to participate in a trial. Before agreeing to participate in a research study, you should find out as much as possible about it.
It's important that a patient knows what clinical question the trial is trying to address and know if that's an important question to them. They should know what is going to be involved in participating in the trial, what time commitments are going to be involved, whether there are extra tests, whether there are extra treatments, and what their commitments are going to be. And they should also know how they're going to be informed about the progress of the trial and when the results are going to be available and how they're going to be informed about the results.
I was given an awful lot of information about the trial day and my wife was given it as well.
The clinical nurse, Yvonne, sat both of us down, explained things to us, explained very clearly to Aisling at her level about the trial and about the medication. It was never a worry for us at all.
If I had any questions about why I was taking it or something like that, then Mum would just email her or ring her and then she would explain it to me.
When we first started on the trial, the doctors explained everything that was going to happen to Maisie. Obviously that's our primary concern, and we just wanted to make sure she was going to be okay. I mean, they explained what was going to happen with injections and monitoring and all that sort of stuff. Everything was explained properly so we could make an informed decision, really.
It's very important that children, young people or families who participate in studies and clinical trials have the very best information so that they are truly informed when they come to consent. And of course, as they go through, if they feel uncomfortable with a clinical trial, they could stop without fault or comment.
It was entirely up to you, and even though if you agreed, you could, drop out at any time if you wanted.
There are many benefits when participating in a clinical trial, but don't just take our word for that.
I've had the opportunity to try what at the time was a leading edge treatment, and that's benefited me personally.
Doing more like testing that I've never had done before, that's quite interesting, and it kind of makes you feel special being picked to do it.
Patients should consider taking part in clinical trials because there's a lot of evidence that areas that have best care are also involved in best research. In other words, taking part in the clinical trial facilitates better care, health improvements, perhaps directly for the patient, but perhaps in a broader scale, either for patients with similar conditions or to give us better information about health and problems in general.
We could just take the research that other countries do, but actually the research we do gives access to patients to the latest treatments. It gives them the opportunity to be altruistic and help others by gaining the knowledge. There's a lot of evidence that patients who've joined in trials enjoy the attention they get and the structured approach of a study. And we also fund research that no one else would.
Most clinical trials pose no danger to patients, but nevertheless, taking part in some trials aren't without their risks.
A clinical trial has to answer a question, and part of the question may be that the new treatment is not necessarily better than the old treatment, and there always has to be some risk of side effects which may outweigh the benefits. Every effort is made to keep side effects to a minimum and to learn as much as possible before a definitive clinical trial is done, but the risk cannot be completely taken out of the design.
I had worries about what happens if it all goes wrong, but not really. Everything was explained to me from start to finish.
It was explained, very clearly to us, and there was also the possibility that she may not have been taking a drug at all. She might have just had a placebo.
There was trepidation. I wanted to know the ins and outs of everything and the reasons of why it was being carried out. And once those inquisitions were satisfied, I thought, yeah, I've got to go ahead with this.
One of the other deciding factors was the fact that the drug that's been used is already successfully used in adults, and the trial is to see if it will work in children. So that was a big factor as well in our decision. It made it easier to decide.
All research that's undertaken in the UK has been assessed by a research and ethics committee to ensure that patients are protected and the research is robust and well developed. In addition, research is checked by the governance organisations within the NHS, and all researchers are trained to a high level and have to go regular checking and accreditation to ensure that they are aware of exactly what's needed to ensure patient safety and good practice.
Throughout every research study, all patient information collected will be kept confidential. In many cases, even the research staff has no access to patient names.
At the end of a clinical trial, all patient information has to be stored. There's a legal obligation that this is done, but all data are stored in a totally anonymised form. And no one will have access to patients' individual data, and no presentation at meetings and no publication in the journals will ever identify individual people in the clinical trial. It's totally anonymised.
I felt encouraged how they dealt with everything, even when we were phone calls or emails. We were just very encouraged that it was going to be completely confidential, and we are still quite pleased that that's how it has gone, and we're not worried.
The results of the trials tend in broad terms to be, on balance, this community is helped by this drug. And that's fine, and I'm very comfortable with that. The fact that I'm just one number amongst 100 or 1,000 is fine.
Volunteers are absolutely crucial to clinical trials. In order for us to find out whether any new medication is better than existing best medical practice, we have to do comparisons of the new treatment or new agent with existing best care. And the only way to do this in a really solid scientific fashion is through a randomised trial. We rely totally on volunteers in order to find out this information about new treatments.
It should be loads of information out there, put out there, volunteering people to come aboard to do these trials.
And if you're asked to do it, go for it, because it's just worth it.
Not to be worried about it, to just take your doctor's advice and just be positive about it.
As you're doing a trial, you're benefiting other people as well. Maisie's benefited, and then obviously the trial itself will benefit other people as it goes on.
Maisie's condition is so rare, and there are other children in the world with it, and they've been on this trial, so some of the feedback already from the trial has come over here, and it's just really for Maisie's health and to make her life better as much as possible, really.
I want the NHS, through the National Institute of Health Research, the NIHR, to be active in research that matters to patients and the public all over. I have this dream that wherever a patient is, if there's a study going on, they should be able to join in. Wherever a clinician is, a doctor, a nurse, if there's a study going on that they would like to join in and patients want to participate, they will join in. And it's about generating the evidence that we need, but it's also about opportunity and choice for patients and improving the quality of services across the whole NHS.